Hey guys, welcome back to another one. So today what we're going to be talking about is fur prices. So kind of what fur prices are at this year, what you can kind of hope to get some money for, and kind of is it worth it for you at least. For me, no matter what, going to be trapping this year. Took a week off, ready to go. Have mostly everything that I want, I think. Maybe something I'm forgetting, but I'm sure by the time season rolls around, which is in about month and a half, I would say, we should be pretty much ready to rock and roll at that point. So I got the prices from my local fur buyer here in Minnesota. So kind of take that with a grain of salt, because depending on where you're at, these prices can be very, very different just because of the quality of the fur in your area. So say you're down south, your stuff's not quite as good, sadly, because everything's a little warmer. Nothing really gets that nice coat on them. And yeah, that's just kind of the main thing. Out west, obviously, even west from Minnesota, everything gets a lot more prime. Everything's worth quite a bit more. So that all kind of depends on there. In the meantime, I'll probably just be moving some stuff around, so don't mind me. So yeah, let's kind of get at it. So the first thing that he said, so it's pretty early right now, so some things might change, obviously. But here's my basis prices for good colored prime fur. So just in general, with every single buyer, they want good colored and prime fur. So don't, especially this year, it's not the year to go out early and start catching stuff, just catch stuff. Because everyone wants prime fur. Every buyer wants prime fur, especially this year when they can be very picky and still pay basically bottom line for it. They're not going to be buying the scruffed up raccoons, the coyotes that aren't primed, the muskrats that aren't primed. There's no point, because they're already basically spending the same price that they always did for really bad fur, but actually getting nice prime for these years. So yeah, raccoons right now, he's estimating right around $4 each. So as you know, that's a pretty big bummer, especially for us, as I have 6 bait stations ready to rock and roll this year for them. Hopefully get some skunks around there too, maybe. So I'll probably end up putting some footholds around there to actually catch a couple of those, because those are a little bit better for us. But raccoons are really low. Obviously, not a lot of people buying them. I don't know if you've been watching the latest auction that I believe ended last month. They finally put out all the notes on it. I know Coon Creek Outdoors put out a video about them. So if you ever needed to, you can go watch that for a little more info, for kind of a wider basis of how the auction houses are doing. Newsflash, it's not very good. And then coyotes in my area are at $50. So just for kind of comparison, last year they're at $100 to $75. So basically they dropped in half, which is kind of due to the pandemic, kind of due to some of the auction houses getting an over fluctuation of furs, some companies moving away from fur, just a lot of things impacting that. So it's really difficult. Coyotes are still really good in my area. Obviously at $50, you can still make quite a bit of money off of them if you have the area to actually trap them, and if you're able to concentrate them so you're not traveling all around the state. Obviously, if you're trying to stay around local, which I'll be trying to do. So I don't think we're going to be hammering them really that hard. Sadly, I don't think we'll be making that many or catching that many of them, sadly, just because of the area that we're able to trap this year is kind of limited. And then muskrats are at $4. Obviously, very good price for muskrats, at least for the last couple of years for me that have been in this. That's pretty good, kind of where it's always been. For muskrats, $4, so 2 to 4 is kind of the main range that you kind of end up getting. And then the other thing that he has is red and gray fox. So We don't have a really abundance population of fox, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. He says that he can buy a handful of them frozen if they are in great shape, because then they can get taxidermied out. He can sell them out to some of his taxidermy friends and buyers. But if they're skinned, they'll only be worth a few bucks at most. So if you skin them, then it's kind of out of luck. You're going to probably get the price of a raccoon out of them. At that point, I'll probably keep them and tan them. If he already filled out his quota for the handful of frozen ones that he wants, I'll probably keep them because you can make some cool stuff out of them. So I figured that'd be nicer, like a wall hanger or something like that. And then the next one is skunks. Skunks are at $4, so it's just kind of like a raccoon. Skunks are usually made for the novelty market because there's not many other things that you can do with a skunk, as the fur looks like a skunk no matter what. So some actual places will buy raccoon fur instead of coyotes for trim because it looks like a coyote, because they can get away with it. You can't do that with a skunk. It's black and white and it has 2 lines down the back, usually. So very difficult, usually just a novelty thing, but since a lot of people don't trap them, they're still worth something at least. And then the main thing with skunks is you want to actually get the essence out of them. So that's the thing that they spray out and smells really bad and sticks to you forever. You actually draw that out of those glands and then you can actually sell that. So it's kind of like how you sell beaver castor, but you sell the skunk essence, but you don't dry it, obviously. So, and then along the next one is beaver. So he says it's right around $5 green average with the kits out. So he's not kind of buying the yearlings, obviously. Not worth too much for him, so he's not going to go out of his way for him. So to be expected, that's kind of how it's been for a couple years. The $5 average is pretty rough though. Like always, it's kind of going down for beaver. Not a lot of places use beaver too much. And then beaver castor is worth right around $80 to $85 a pound dried. Depending on whether you want to send that to the auction, you could get up to, you know, $110, I believe, was grade, basically top of the line grade for beaver castor. So beaver castor actually gets graded on how full they are. So say you have the beaver castor out, there's 2 glands that come out, and say they're very dried out, there's not much in them, you're going to get a really low grade because the amount of castor versus skin isn't that good. So they're buying a lot of skin, not a lot of casters, so they're going to give you $80 for it or $70 because they're not getting a lot of castor out of the deal. But say it's a nice plump full one that dried out, still really plump full, you'll probably get $110, $120 per pound for it because its castor to skin ratio is a lot better. So something you want to look out for. So you kind of want to get them before they start to breed. That's usually when they're most plump full. So that's something that you should watch out for. I know a lot of places, they usually do it right around December, January, I think. So something you want to watch out for, especially if you have limited beaver opportunities, you want to get them when you can get the most money out of them. For my area, we have quite a bit of beaver, I would say. Not a lot of limited opportunities. So a lot of farmers don't really like beaver, so they'll call up everyone once they know that you beaver trap, and they'll be like, call this guy, get all the beavers out of here. So really helps them with their fields, and then it helps us make a little money on our end. And then lastly, for mink, he says maybe a buck or 2. So, you know, mink has been hurt really hard from all the mink farms, all the fur farms that they had. A lot of them went out of business, so a lot of them dumped a lot of their fur into the market. All the auction houses are still trying to sell off that big mass quantity that they have. So you really aren't going to get that much for mink. Sadly, even though they're really fun to trap and stuff like that, you're not going to be getting too much out of them. So overall in my area, I would say if you're trapping for money, obviously, a lot of people do. Some people do it for conservation and kind of conserving wildlife and stuff like that. But a lot of people trap it for money. We're not going to lie and say people don't. because as people see in the past few years, when fur prices drop, a lot of trappers don't renew their licenses, trapping experience and stuff like that goes down. So it's just the tide of the tail. So you can't really say that people aren't in it for the money. Right now, you can say most of the people that are in it right now aren't for the money, just because they're not making too much right now, unless you have a lot of coyote spots like that. So yeah, I would say if you're going for money and stuff like that, or just trying to cover your expenses, at least for me, I'm going to probably be targeting coyotes and beavers and skunks. We have quite a few skunks, I would say. So you can get a lot of that essence. The essence worth quite a bit. You just got to be very careful putting them down so you don't actually get sprayed, because then there's no essence and then you have it all over you and you smell terrible. So something you got to watch out for. Beaver's really good, obviously, just for the caster and just because you get that relationship with the farmer where they really do like you then. So something that kind of helps them and you at the same time. But overall, I think that kind of the main staple of my line is still going to be raccoons. Even with those $4 fur prices, I'm still probably going to be going for coons as hard as I can, just because I believe, for me at least, I have a very good coon population where I am. And with that being said, they're all really healthy and they're going to be very big. So I should be able to hit that $3 to $4 mark with raccoons. And I'll probably keep a couple to tan on my side as well. But you have to try to, with this, when I set all my raccoon traps around the bait stations, you could catch a skunk as well. So that's something that you have to watch out for and set accordingly. You don't want to just put dog proofs around this, because you could end up catching something else. So you kind of want to make sure that you have a couple footholds. Depending on where you live, you can't actually set bait stations, especially in Minnesota, because of the wasting disease with the deer. So really check your regulations, because you might not be able to set these at all, or you might be able to set them but with certain bait, because they don't want deer to congregate, at least in some of the counties, mostly southeastern Minnesota. So something you got to watch out for that. And then obviously once season comes around, I'm going to take the bait station out, clear all the ground around it so there's no food or anything like that for soaring birds to catch or get anything like that. And I'm not actually going to set right in that vicinity around the bait station. I'm actually going to move further back around those trails that they're coming in. So they're not actually even making it to where that bait station location is for them. They actually are just walking towards it. And then they're like, oh, there's a meal. Bam, got them. So something you got to watch out for. Try to cover all your bases. Don't just set dog proofs, because you're not going to catch everything. So yeah, I would say raccoons is probably going to be the main thing that I'm going to be catching this year. Going to set out the line, basically. Say you have a line, you set out for all your raccoons. Hopefully they're going to be kind of congregated with the bait station. Say the bait station's right there. You're able to set the trails around it. But that's going to be the main reason why I stop at that location, because I know I'm going to get raccoons every single time. But you also want to make that actually worthwhile, because say you only catch 4 raccoons at this trail or bait station, you only got, what, over $10 maybe, depending on how their fur is. You might have to let a couple go. You might get a possum, which possums are great, by the way. Not really. They're not worth anything. I think they're starting to get a market for them, hopefully. So maybe in the coming years, they might be worth a couple dollars, but that'll probably be the most of them. But you'll also want to set for your coyotes along your line, so you know that you're going to be catching some things on that line. So it's not a wasted stop per se, but you're also going to be able to try to get those high value animals and furs out of it. So say you have your raccoons, you have a beaver set out here, boom, you get a beaver. That's what, $20 maybe, depending on how much casters in them and with the actual fur. So kind of helps out your situation. So if you guys have any ideas on what your actual prices are around your ranges, in the states that you're in or wherever you're at. Feel free to leave it in the comments below. I love to hear other people's prices from where they live because they vary so drastically. Because our $50 coyote in Minnesota is only worth, what, $20 down south, and maybe 20. And then if you go out west, they're worth up to 100. So you never really know. I like to hear what other people have kind of in their mind, what they're actually going for. Feel free to shoot what you're going for this year. I know a lot of people hopefully will be going after coyotes and stuff like that. Hopefully the beavers to keep them down, as I know a lot of populations got quite out of control because they're not getting trapped, because they're not worth anything, and people don't realize that the caster is worth so much. So really try to make sure that you get everything out of the animal that you can, so you're not wasting it and you're not throwing away money as well. Since you already have that animal there, you might as well use it, you know. And yeah, if you have any questions for free, leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching.